Alexa, brighten the light. The true scandal of psychoanalysis is that it lacks an agreed goal. To define the aim of analysis is to betray its principle, that one cannot know in advance what change is possible. The desire for a known destination is the symptom of an analyst, as much as the patient. To want a cure too much is to sabotage the possibility of transformation. The most offensive act is to know what one wants. There may be something better than cure, but it cannot be known beforehand. Something better is the analyst's prayer disguised as modesty. The refusal of omnipotence is the beginning of wisdom. The refusal of omniscience, the beginning of psychoanalysis. Cure promises completion, analysis invites complexity. To be cured may be to cease evolving. To be analyzed is to risk evolution without end. The analyst's wish to heal is the patient's last seduction. Identification is the earliest and most elegant form of self-cure. To identify with another is to outsource the management of one's inner conflict. The danger of self-cure is foreclosure to be cured of the capacity to change. We are the animals who long to be stuck in image, in role, in definition. Representation is the narcotic of the psyche. To fix an image is to foreclose a process. Cure is the myth of completion. Analysis is the practice of continuation. The culture of cure inherits from the religion a redemption. The doctor succeeds the priest, the coach succeeds the altar, the couch succeeds the altar. We live in the aftermath of belief. Our secular miracles are called treatments. The faith in cure is the remnant of our belief in salvation. The question, can I be cured, repeats the older question, can I be forgiven? Improvement may be the denial of mystery. Self-improvement, the denial of depth. To improve may be to evade the unknown in oneself. Self-knowledge can be the cleverest disguise for self-avoidance. The first thought of cure is mastery. The second thought is mercy. Second thoughts are the soul's resistance to premature clarity. To be cured of the wish to be cured. To be cured of the wish to be cured, that may be the beginning of freedom. The assumptions of the cure's position is itself an illness. To want to cure is to suffer from the fantasy of knowing what's wrong or what is wrong. The analyst's disease is omniscience disguised as benevolence. Every promise of cure is a relapse into mastery. The wish to heal conceals a fear of learning. The avoidance of cure in writing disguises its ubiquity in practice. To write of cure is to risk exposure of failure, of fantasy, of commerce. The analyst's promise is a subtle contract of desire, the selling of hope as a method. Every cure offered is also a commodity offered against despair. What the analyst wants for the patient may have nothing to do with what the patient wants for themselves. Cure reproduces the family drama. What the patient wants for the child becomes what the analyst wants for the analysand. Every ideal of cure reenacts an inherited ideal of goodness. The psychoanalyst's moral project is the child's deferred obedience. The analyst's ambition to cure is the transference of the patient's wish to educate. For Freud, the cure was the transformation of hysterical misery into common unhappiness. For Klein, it was the attainment of the depressive position. For Lacan, the refusal to betray desire. For Winnicott, the resumption of play. Each aim reveals not science but theology, the analyst's gospel of redemption. The proliferation of curative definitions is the symptom of epistemological unease. When psychoanalysis defines cure, it advertises itself as culture's latest ideal of the good life. To avoid a new theory of cure is to add a new shelf to the supermarket of salvation. Ideals of cure are the ego ideals of this age. The analyst who promises freedom manufactures a new form of compliance. The rhetoric of cure sustains the fantasy of cultural progress. Psychoanalysis should not add to the stock of ambitions, but study ambition itself. Freud's conscience whispered, above all, don't try to cure, learn and earn. Learning from the patient was his disguise for refusing omnipotence. To learn from the patient is the true act of cure. The analyst who learns to cure. The analyst who learns is cured of their authority. The patient's value is not in being cured, but in curing the analyst of certainty. Freud distrusted the wish to help. He knew it had domination. He knew it hid domination. The analyst who needs to cure repeats the patient's need to perfect the child. To cure and to control share a root system. The wish to help may be the most sophisticated form of aggression. Psychoanalysis begins where benevolence becomes self-suspicion. Common unhappiness is Freud's modest utopia, the equilibrium of despair. Every modesty can conceal omniscience. Who decides what is common or what counts as unhappy? The myth of common human unhappiness disguises the analyst's community of preference. To call misery common is to normalize despair. Freud's realism is another form of defense, a myth of the typical to protect against the abyss of the singular. Freud's realism is another form of defense, a myth of the typical to protect against the abyss of the singular. Where id was, there ego shall be, the imperial slogan of inner colonization. The ego's conquest of the id repeats the history of empires. The self becomes its own colonizer, introspection becomes annexation. Psychoanalysis dreams of democracy but practices monarchy. The new adventure is the secularization of mysticism, the transformation of ecstasy into method. To live psychoanalysis is to exchange cure for adventure. The adventure is not the recovery but risk, a freedom from the untried. The patient who begins with hope may end with curiosity. Cure promises safety, adventure promises surprise. Where cure was, there adventure shall be. Every symptom is a failed self-cure. What we suffer from is not illness, but our own attempts at healing. To cure a cure is the paradox that defines psychoanalysis. Self-cure becomes a labyrinth from which only curiosity can release us. The wish to cure is the defense against sustained interest in one's suffering. The cure distracts us from the question. It converts inquiry into closure. To seek solutions too quickly is to betray the problem's depth. The desire for cure is the symptom of impatience with meaning. The question is not how can I be cured, but what am I curing myself of by asking. We suffer from our answers more than from our wounds. Psychoanalysis without curative intention is not a failure, but a fidelity to the unconscious. To practice without memory and desires to resist the tyranny of prognosis. The analyst begins explaining only when frightened by curiosity. The true analyst is an adventurer in not knowing. The true analysis is an adventure in not knowing. Every map of cure is a refusal of discovery. The unknown is the only true patient in every analysis. To love the unknown is to suspend the will to cure. The cure for the wish to be cured is wonder. The analyst who does not know where she is going may finally arrive somewhere anew. It is good to love the unknown, but only experience can teach whether it is good. To cure is to foreclose. To interpret is to prolong. The analyst's task is not to solve, but to sustain. The patient's task is not to heal, but to learn to bear uncertainty. Every cure presupposes a fear of the future. Every analysis worth having defends the future against preemption.